My fiancée demanded that I give her parents a share of my business. She gave me an ultimatum to call off the wedding, but what I did next left her speechless. I'm a 33-year-old man, and honestly, I'm proud of what I've accomplished. My tech consulting firm isn't Google or Amazon, but it's mine. I started it with no outside help, no rich relatives, no magical investments, just me, my laptop, and too many sleepless nights. I sacrificed a lot to make it work. I skipped vacations, dined on instant noodles when I couldn't afford takeout, and said goodbye to any semblance of work-life balance. So yeah, I'm pretty attached to what I've built. About a year ago, I met Jenna, a 29-year-old woman. At first, she seemed like the perfect match. She was ambitious, confident, and had this magnetic energy that drew people in. She knew how to dress, how to talk, and how to captivate a room in ways that, I'll admit, I could never pull off. We started dating, and things were great for a while. I thought I'd finally found someone who understood my drive. A year later, we were engaged. The proposal wasn't anything extravagant, just us, a nice dinner, and a quiet moment where I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and for a while, I thought I was on top of the world. Wedding planning wasn't exactly my thing, but Jenna took the reins like a pro. Venues, dresses, catering, she had it all under control, and I was happy to go along with it. Or so I thought. One night, about 3 months before the big day, we were sitting at the kitchen table. Jenna had her laptop open, scrolling through Pinterest boards of flower arrangements or something. I was half listening, sipping my coffee, and pretending to be interested in the difference between peonies and roses. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped this. "Honey," she said, in that tone that meant she wanted something. "We need to talk about my parents." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay, what about them?" She smiled sweetly. "Well, don't you think we should do something special to thank them for everything they've done for us?" I blinked. "Didn't we just take them on that weekend trip to Napa? And I bought your dad that expensive watch he wanted. What else are you thinking?" She closed her laptop and leaned forward, like she was about to share a brilliant idea. "I was thinking that maybe you could give them a stake in your business." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. "Wait, what? A stake?" "A small stake," she clarified, as if that made it better. "Just as a gesture of gratitude. They've always wanted to be a part of something successful, and this would mean a lot to them." I stared at her, trying to process the sheer audacity of what she'd just said. "You want me to give your parents a piece of my company? As a gift?" "Yes," she said, smiling like it was a totally normal thing to ask. "It's a sign of trust and respect. They've done so much for me. This would show that you appreciate them too." I couldn't believe it. I actually laughed, thinking she had to be joking. "Jenna, I built this company from the ground up. Your parents had nothing to do with it. Why would I give them a piece of it?" Her smile faded, and she gave me a look like I was the unreasonable one. "Because they're family. My family. Soon to be your family. This isn't just business. It's about building connections and showing that you value them." I put down my coffee, suddenly wide awake. "Jenna, I don't think you understand how business works. Giving someone a stake in my company isn't a casual thing. It's not like handing out party favors. This is my livelihood." She sighed, as if I was being difficult. "You're overthinking it. It's just a symbolic gesture. They're not going to take over or anything." I rubbed my temples, trying to stay calm. "Jenna, this isn't symbolic. It's legal. Your parents didn't help me build this company. They didn't invest in it. Why would I give them a piece of it?" Her tone shifted then, becoming sharper. "Because they're my parents, Aaron. Without them, I wouldn't even be here. Don't you think they deserve something in return?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They deserve respect, sure. But respect doesn't mean giving away something I've worked so hard for. The conversation ended that night, at least for a while. But as I lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something bigger. Jenna's request wasn't just odd, it was selfish. And the fact that she thought it was reasonable was a major red flag. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. Jenna had always been a bit extravagant. She grew up in a family where money wasn't exactly scarce, and she had this habit of expecting the best without questioning where it came from. I'd always thought it was harmless, but now it felt like she was treating my business, my life's work, like a bargaining chip. The day after Jenna's little suggestion, I woke up hoping she'd thought better of it. Maybe she'd had a momentary lapse in judgment. People say dumb things when they're caught up in emotions, right? I figured she'd realize how absurd the idea was and we'd move on. I couldn't have been more wrong. That morning, I made coffee for us both, as usual. And for a minute, everything felt normal. She kissed me on the cheek, thanked me for the coffee, and started scrolling through her phone while I read emails on my laptop. I even thought, maybe I overreacted. Maybe she'll let it go. But then, as if on cue, she brought it up again. "Honey," she said, setting down her phone. I was thinking more about what we talked about last night. My stomach dropped. What we talked about last night could only mean one thing. "Jenna," I started, already exhausted. "We don't need to rehash this." I thought we were done with that conversation. She gave me a practiced smile, the kind she usually reserved for convincing me to go to ridiculously expensive brunch places. "I just think you're not seeing the bigger picture here. This isn't about the money or the control. It's about showing my parents that you value them as much as I do." I closed my laptop, realizing I wasn't getting out of this conversation. "Jenna, I respect your parents. I really do. But giving them a stake in my company isn't a bigger picture. It's a legal and financial nightmare." I leaned back in my chair, trying to remain calm. Once someone has a stake in a business, it's theirs. It doesn't matter if they're involved or not. And no offense, but your parents have no idea how to run a tech company. She waved her hand dismissively. They don't need to know. It's not about running anything. It's about making them feel appreciated. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was serious. She was. The rest of the day, the conversation replayed in my head. I couldn't focus on work because I kept thinking, this is what the rest of my life is going to be like. Constant guilt trips and unreasonable demands. That night, it got worse. We were sitting on the couch, watching TV, when she suddenly turned to me and said, "You know, if my parents had a stake in the company, it could really benefit you too." I paused the show. "What are you talking about now?" "They have really good connections," she said, flipping her hair like she was presenting me with a business deal. "My dad knows a lot of people in real estate, and my mom is in some entrepreneurial women's groups. They could help you get more clients." I rubbed my temples. "Jenna, my business doesn't need your parents' help. I've been growing it just fine without them." "But think of the potential," she said, her voice getting more excited. "With their connections, you could scale up so much faster. This isn't just for them. It's for us. For our future." And there it was. She'd shifted tactics. The demand wasn't just about pleasing her parents anymore. It was about our future. "Jenna," I said slowly, "if this is about our future, then you should be supporting the business I've already built, not trying to hand out pieces of it to your parents." She frowned, clearly not liking where this was going. "I am supporting you. I just think you're being myopic. My parents are excited about our wedding, and this would make them feel like they're part of something meaningful." It wasn't excitement. It was entitlement, plain and simple. But I didn't want to blow up at her, at least not yet. "Look," I said, "I respect that your parents are important to you, but this is crossing a line." Her frown deepened, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression that made me uneasy. She wasn't just annoyed. She was calculating. The next day, things took a turn I didn't see coming. Jenna had apparently decided to recruit reinforcements. Her mother called me while I was at work. "Hello, Erin," her mother said, in a too cheery voice that immediately put me on alert. "I just wanted to thank you for being so thoughtful about including us in the business. Jenna mentioned your idea, and we're so touched." I almost dropped my phone. Excuse me?" "Don't be modest," she said with a laugh. "Jenna told us you're thinking of giving us a stake in your company as a wedding gift." It's such a generous gesture. You're already part of the family. I was so stunned I couldn't speak for a second. Then I managed to stammer, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I never agreed to anything like that. Her tone changed instantly. Oh! Well, that's not what Jenna said. Yes, well, Jenna and I haven't exactly come to an agreement about this, I said firmly. And frankly, I'm not comfortable with the idea. Her mother was silent for a moment, then said, I see. Well, I hope you'll reconsider. This would mean a lot to us. I ended the call with my blood boiling. Jenna had gone behind my back and sold her parents on an idea I had flatly rejected. When I got home that night, I confronted her. Why did your mother call me about the business? Jenna didn't even look guilty. I thought it would help if they understood how much this could mean to them. Sometimes people need a little encouragement. A little encouragement? I exploded. You made it sound like I'd already agreed to this. She crossed her arms, her tone turning defensive. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I was just trying to get everyone on the same page. The same page, I said, my voice rising. Jenna, this isn't a group project. This is my business, my work, and you have no right to promise anything about it to anyone, especially not your parents. For the first time, I saw a flash of anger in her eyes. If you can't do this for me and my family, then maybe you don't care about us as much as you say. I stared at her, dumbfounded. She was seriously trying to guilt-trip me over this? You know what, Jenna? I finally said. If this is how you're going to act, maybe we need to rethink some things. I walked out of the room before she could respond, my mind racing. I didn't know where this was going, but one thing was clear. Jenna wasn't going to back down, and neither was I. I thought Jenna's antics had already reached peak crazy, but I was wrong. That was just the opening act. What came next turned this whole situation from annoying to downright toxic. The next morning, I called my best friend, Dave. If anyone could give me an honest opinion, it was him. When I explained the situation, he let out a long, low whistle. Dude, this is bad. Like, run for the hills bad. Yeah, no kidding, I muttered. Let me get this straight, he said. She's basically threatening to break things off unless you hand over part of your business to her parents? Basically, I said. And she doesn't see why that's insane. No, Dave said, letting out a laugh of the kind that's more disbelief than humor. Man, I don't know what to tell you. This is not normal. At all. If she's this entitled now, imagine what she'll be like when you're married. Are you sure you want to go through with this? That was the question, wasn't it? For the first time, I wasn't sure of the answer. That night, Jenna gave me the ultimatum. We were sitting in the living room, barely speaking, when she suddenly said, So, have you made your decision? Decision about what? I asked, even though I already knew. The shares, she said bluntly. Are you going to do it or not? I looked her directly in the eyes. No, Jenna. I'm not. She sat back, crossing her arms. Then maybe this relationship isn't going to work. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to figure out if she was bluffing. But her expression told me she wasn't. Maybe not, I finally said. Her eyes widened as if she hadn't expected me to actually call her bluff. You're willing to throw everything away over this? I could ask you the same thing, I said. You're the one making unreasonable demands and threatening to leave when you don't get your way. What kind of foundation is that for a marriage? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood up and walked out of the room. As I sat there in silence, I realized something. This wasn't just a fight. This was a turning point. And no matter how it ended, things would never be the same again. After Jenna's ultimatum, I spent the next day walking around in a daze. My mind was spinning. I couldn't focus on work, and I kept replaying our argument over and over in my head. I knew something had to change, but I wasn't sure what. Should I fight harder to make her understand? Try to reach some sort of compromise? Or was this whole relationship doomed? Then I remembered my lawyer, Olivia. She wasn't just a legal expert. She was a friend who had been through some messy situations herself. If anyone could give me some good advice, it was her. I called Olivia and told her I needed to talk. She didn't even hesitate. "Come to my office this afternoon," she said. "We'll figure it out." When I walked into her office, Olivia greeted me with a smile and a coffee. "All right, Erin, what's got you so worked up?" I sighed and sat down, spilling the whole story. I told her about Jenna's request, the guilt trips, her mother's call, and finally, the ultimatum. Olivia's smile faded as I spoke, replaced by an expression of pure disbelief. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Wow, that's a lot. Tell me about it," I muttered. "Let me get this straight," she said. "Your fiancé is demanding that you give her parents a stake in your company as a wedding gift?" "Yes," I said. "And she threatened to break off the engagement if you didn't?" I nodded. Olivia let out a low whistle. "Erin, this is a huge red flag. Like, wave it in the air and run the other way, red flag." "I know," I said. "But what am I supposed to do? I love her, but this feels like a line I can't cross." "You're absolutely right," Olivia said firmly. "You cannot cross this line. Not just for you, but for the future of your business. If you give away equity now, you're opening yourself up to a world of legal and financial complications." "Like what?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "For starters," she said, "if you transfer shares to her parents, those shares legally belong to them. If anything goes wrong, say they decide they want more ownership, or they sell their portion to someone else, you lose control of that chunk of your business. And if you and Jenna do get married, it gets even more complicated. Those shares could be considered marital property, meaning they would be on the table in a divorce." I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. "So you're saying this could screw me over in more ways than one?" "Exactly," Olivia said. "And let's be realistic here. If Jenna is making these kinds of demands now, what's to stop her from making even bigger ones in the future?" I sat there, staring at my coffee. Olivia was right. This wasn't just a one-time issue. It was a glimpse into a future I didn't want to be a part of. "What do I do?" I finally asked. Olivia leaned forward, her expression serious. "You need to protect yourself first. Make sure your business is legally airtight. Update your operating agreement to specify that no shares can be transferred without your explicit consent. And if you haven't already, separate your personal finances from your business accounts. Keep everything clean and untangled." "Done," I said. "I've always kept my business finances separate." "Good," Olivia said. "Now, about Jenna. You need to be crystal clear with her. No more maybes or we'll sees. Tell her plainly that this is not going to happen and that it's not open for discussion. If she can't accept that, well," her voice trailed off, but I knew what she was implying. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I might have to end it." Olivia nodded, her expression understanding. "I know it's not easy, Erin. But you need to think about what's best for you in the long run. A healthy relationship doesn't involve ultimatums and manipulation." That night, I arrived home feeling more resolute than I had in days. Olivia's words echoed in my head. A healthy relationship doesn't involve ultimatums. Jenna was sitting on the couch when I walked in, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. I set down my bag and stood in front of her. "We need to talk," I said. She looked up, her expression wary. "About what?" "About the business. About your parents. About this whole situation." Jenna sighed dramatically, as if she was already tired of the conversation. "Erin, we've already talked about this. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it." "Because it is a big deal," I said. "And I need you to understand that this is not going to happen. I will not give your parents a stake in my company, and that's final." Her eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You've made your decision, and I just have to accept it." "Yes," I said firmly. "You do. Because this isn't about love, or family, or respect. This is about you and your parents trying to take something that doesn't belong to you." Jenna stood up, her face flushing with anger. "How dare you? My parents have done nothing but support us, and this is how you repay them? By being selfish and greedy." "Selfish and greedy?" I repeated, my voice rising. Jenna, I've bent over backward to make your parents feel included. But giving them a piece of my business, that's not inclusion, that's entitlement. She crossed her arms, glaring at me. Well, if you're so determined to be selfish, maybe we shouldn't get married at all. The words hung in the air like a challenge, but I didn't take the bait. Instead, I looked her in the eye and said, "That's what I've decided." For a moment, Jenna just stared at me, dumbfounded. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to stand my ground. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house. The next few days were chaotic. Jenna called me repeatedly, alternating between angry tirades and tearful pleas. At first, I ignored her, but eventually, I answered one of her calls, thinking I might as well hear her out. "Aaron," she said, her voice trembling as if she was on the verge of tears. "I'm so sorry. I was under a lot of pressure from my parents. They've been pushing me to make sure our marriage is secure, and I guess I let that get to me." "That's not an excuse, Jenna," I said bluntly. "You didn't just let your parents pressure you. You tried to pressure me. You didn't care how it made me feel, and you didn't stop to think about the consequences." "I know," she said, sobbing. "But I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you. I just wanted to make my family happy. If you loved me," I said firmly, "you wouldn't have tried to manipulate me into doing something that goes against everything I've worked for. Love isn't about making someone sacrifice their dreams to please your parents." She started crying again, but I didn't stay to listen. I hung up and blocked her number. Over the next few days, Jenna tried every tactic she could think of. She called my parents, my friends, even some of my business contacts, trying to paint me as the villain. The first wave of fallout came from Jenna's parents. As expected, they weren't happy. I'd blocked Jenna on my phone, but her parents managed to get through. The first call was from her mother, who I swear should have been a politician with how she could twist things around. "Hello, Aaron," she started, in an overly sweet tone. "I just wanted to reach out and clear up any misunderstandings. I'm sure Jenna didn't mean to upset you. I didn't even try to play along. There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Carter. Jenna tried to pressure me into giving you and your husband a stake in my business. When I said no, she threatened to end the engagement. That's pretty clear." There was a pause, then she said, "Well, maybe she didn't explain it properly. You know how passionate she can be. She just wanted to include us because we care so much about her future and yours." I almost laughed. "Mrs. Carter, with all due respect, this isn't about passion or caring. I'm not giving away something I built from scratch, and I'm not going to be bullied into it." Her tone shifted, turning colder. "Aaron, I think you're being very short-sighted. Family is about compromise. If you can't understand that, maybe Jenna was right to reconsider this relationship." "Maybe she was," I said firmly. "Goodbye, Mrs. Carter." I hung up before she could respond and immediately blocked her number, too. The second wave came from mutual friends. Jenna wasted no time spreading her version of events to anyone who would listen. According to her, I was a controlling jerk who didn't value family and refused to share the success I supposedly owed to others. It wasn't long before some of those friends started reaching out to me, wanting to know my side. One friend, Emily, texted me, "Hey Aaron, I heard some things from Jenna, and I just want to understand what's really going on. You called off the engagement because she wanted to involve her parents in your business." I sighed and decided to nip it in the bud. I replied, "Emily, here's the short version. Jenna demanded that I give her parents a stake in my company as a wedding gift. When I refused, she threatened to end the engagement. I wasn't going to be manipulated like that, so I walked. I have proof if you want to see it." To her credit, Emily responded quickly, "Whoa, that's not the version I heard. Thanks for explaining. I'm sorry you're going through this." That was the pattern with most of them. They'd reach out after hearing Jenna's twisted narrative, but once I shared my side, and sometimes a screenshot or two, they realized the truth. Some people stayed neutral, which was fine by me, but most were understanding. Jenna was losing allies fast. The third wave was Jenna herself. After her attempts to rally support failed, she switched tactics. Suddenly, I was getting emails and voicemails full of apologies and sob stories. "Erin, I'm so sorry," one voicemail began, her voice trembling as if she was on the verge of tears. "I let my parents get in my head, and I pushed you too hard. Please, can we talk? I love you, and I don't want to lose you." I deleted the message without replying. Love. That's what she called trying to manipulate me into giving away a piece of my company. If this was love, I wanted no part of it. Another email arrived a few days later. This one was even more desperate. "Erin, please. I made a mistake. I was under so much pressure and I wasn't thinking clearly. It went on like that for a while, full of excuses and promises to change. But I was done. When Jenna and I sat down to talk again, I was done being nice. I had gone through every emotion: confusion, frustration, disappointment, and finally, I had reached my breaking point. She thought I would cave. She thought her guilt trips, manipulation, and threats would wear me down. But she underestimated one thing: I'm not the kind of person who gives in to ultimatums. The night started calmly. Jenna had been unusually quiet all day, which honestly made me suspicious. Normally, she'd be blowing up my phone with links to wedding decorations or complaining about some minor inconvenience. But that day, radio silence. I figured she was gearing up for round 2 of Let's Make Aaron Give Up His Company. Sure enough, as soon as we finished dinner, she turned to me and said, "So, have you thought more about what we talked about?" I set down my fork and looked her directly in the eye. "Jenna, I don't need to think about it anymore. I've made my decision. The answer is no. It's not going to happen." Jenna crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You're acting like I asked for the whole company. It's just a small stake, a gesture of appreciation. You're making it into something dramatic." "Why is it dramatic?" I retorted. "Once I give away shares, I lose control over that part of my business. Your parents could sell their stake, meddle in decisions, or worse. And if we get married, those shares could end up tangled in a divorce settlement. This isn't just about appreciation, it's about protecting what I've worked so hard to build." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "If you're so worried about protecting your precious business, maybe you shouldn't get married at all." The room went silent for a moment. We stared at each other, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. "You know what, Jenna?" I finally said, my voice calm but firm. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't marry you." She glared at me, her chest rising and falling as she struggled to find something to say. Finally, she hissed, "You're going to regret this. My parents are going to think you're a greedy, ungrateful jerk, and so will everyone else." I laughed bitterly. "Go ahead, tell them. Hell, tell the whole world. I have nothing to hide. But don't forget, I have the receipts. Every text, every conversation, every little attempt to guilt trip me over this. You really want to play that game?" Her face paled, and for the first time, she looked genuinely rattled. "You recorded me?" "I didn't plan to," I said. "But after that stunt with your mother calling me, I figured I needed to protect myself. So yeah, I have proof. And if you try to twist the story, I won't hesitate to set the record straight." She opened her mouth to argue, but then closed it again, realizing she was cornered. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house.